Anyways, so you're all very welcome. So my name is Vajrashura. I have a strange Buddhist name, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. But I'll be leading the course over these next few weeks together. To say a little bit about myself. So I've been involved in the Dublin Buddhist Centre for about 22 years now, I think it is. It'll be 22 years in the autumn. I learned to meditate back in 1999. And I've been a Buddhist for most of that time as well. So I came along to learn to meditate and totally resisted Buddhism for about 2 years and then got into Buddhism as well. And in 2000, I started working in the Buddhist Centre in around 2002. My background, by the way, is in maths and physics, basically. So took a very different career path then. I started working for the Buddhist Centre in 2002 or so. And in 2007, I got ordained into the Triratna Buddhist order. So that's why I have the strange Buddhist name. And I also have this kesa around my neck, which is kind of like our robes, you could say, even though I'm not quite a monastic. We're not a monastic order as such, but basically I'm an order member is someone who lives a committed Buddhist life. And yeah, I'm here. I've led this course a few times before, but I just love this course. I love doing the course. I love the book that's part with the course. It's a really well-written book, really useful. He's a good friend of mine, Ratnaguna. And I love reflection. I think reflection is such a rich practice. And well, I guess I like thinking. I like thinking about things. And sometimes when you come to Buddhist circles, you get the message unconsciously or explicitly or implicitly that thinking is bad, but thinking's really good actually, if you can just do it right. So I'm really quite excited actually now seeing you all about exploring how to think well and how to think usefully and how to think in ways that make us more free and happy. So I'll say more about all that as we go on. Let's see, is there anything else to say about me? I'm based here this is my bedroom in Drumcondra. The centre isn't open, obviously, physically. And it's great being here with you all. You know, it's great. I mean, I do love being in a room with people in person, but it's really nice online to get people from so many different places all over the country and all over the world. So I'm just going to ask each of the team then. So we have quite a big team as well supporting us. Stephen, could you spotlight each person? Would that be too much work as it goes on?
No, that's fine. Yeah, I can do that.
If you want, you can spotlight more than one of us at the time. So, so Stephen is our tech person. So maybe he can spotlight himself. He'll be doing all the tech support, like setting up the breakout rooms. And I'm going to add him to the spotlight. There we go. There he is. So he's downstairs in my house here. We have a Buddhist house here. So do you want to say hello, Stephen?
Yep. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. I hope you all enjoyed the course.
Great. So I'm gonna. So next up, there's David, and then Kira. David, do you want to say hello? Oh, you have to unmute. Kira, you go next. Oh, you can't unmute. That's the problem. I will allow you to unmute. Now you can unmute. I'm sorry about that.
Ladies first, Kira.
Hi everyone, nice to see you all. I recognize a few faces from the meditation course that we're doing, so hello, welcome. Yeah, so really nice to see everybody. I'm also in Drumcondra. I'm also living in a different Buddhist house as well. So really just looking forward to the opportunity just to kind of shape the next few weeks, the next few months maybe, and learn a little bit more about it. So nice to see everyone. Look forward to meeting you all.
Great, thanks, Kira. And David then, and Stephen, you can add someone else.
It's lovely to meet you all. Delighted to be here. I really enjoyed volunteering on the last Sail on the Worldly Winds course. So yeah, I'm delighted to really learn how to think right.
Great, thanks, David. And then Catherine's popped up, so she can go next.
Yeah, thanks. Hi everyone. I'm Catherine. I'm here in Portlaoise. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the course. I was on the Worldly Winds as well, and just looking forward to getting stuck into the material. So
great. So the Worldly Winds course was the one we did last time that just ended a few weeks ago, and a lot of us were on the team as well there. Great, thanks, Catherine. And then Kelly.
Hi everyone. Looking forward to meet all of you and just explore the art of reflection. I really need to. And yeah, that's great to be here with you all.
Great, thanks, Kelly. And Louise.
Hi Hey everyone, I'm Louise. I'm here in Slorgan. I've joined the course just to kind of reconnect to my practice, and looking forward to talking with you all, and I hope you enjoy the course.
Great, thanks. And Sam then?
How you doing, guys? I'm Sam, coming from Rialto in Dublin. I've helped out on a couple of courses now and really enjoy them. Particularly looking forward to this one to make reflection part of my practice. So very approachable. Hope you all enjoy it and looking forward to it.
Great. And then I think there's Dan left, isn't there?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Yeah, lovely to be here and see quite a few familiar faces as well. I'm Daniel. I'm in Berlin. And yeah, just really looking forward to this course and to yeah, chatting with people about how they're experiencing it, and it always supports my practice to do that. So looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks for that, Dan, and thanks for the whole team. Sorry about the unmuting thing there. Great. So just to say a bit about the Buddhist Centre then. So you're not really in the Buddhist Centre as such, but you're virtually coming to the Buddhist Centre now. So the Buddhist Centre was set up, the Dublin Buddhist Centre was set up in 1991, and it's part of a worldwide community called the Triratna Buddhist Community. Triratna means 3 jewels. So we'll probably come across what those 3 jewels are on the course, over the course. And yeah, the Buddhist Centre, the Dublin Buddhist Centre, is a not-for-profit religious charity. So basically what the centre is for is to offer Buddhism, meditation, reflection, tools like this to help people improve their lives, to help people experience more freedom in their lives. That's what we're about. We're not about making money or anything like that. And none of us are getting paid to be here to do this course. We all do it because we love the material. We want to help offer it to people because we've found it helpful ourselves. And I hope one day, I'm not sure about Liz from Tasmania, but I hope one day we'll all be in the centre as well, although Liz, maybe you'll pop over as well down the line. I don't know when we'll reopen again physically, but it's lovely to meet you virtually at least anyway. So to give you a sense of what the course will look like, so let me just, I'm going to be working from a PowerPoint. So I'll give you a sense of the whole course then. So what we'll be doing tonight, so it's 5 weeks. Now it is over 6 weeks. There's a week gap. I think it's after week 3, but I'll confirm that in the tea break. But there's 5 weeks of content. So the first week, tonight, it'll be introductions and looking at how to start leading a reflective life, you could say. Yeah, how to start reflection, how to lead a reflective life. The next week, we'll be looking at well, as things happen to us, how to reflect upon them more, reflecting upon what happens to us in our daily lives. When Buddhism uses this word experience, it just means what's happening to us at any one particular time, whatever's there in our, you know, whatever's happening to us really, what's in our minds, what we're feeling through the body, what we're feeling through the mind. In week 3, we'll look at, you know, picking a topic and dwelling on it more fully. So, for example, a classic reflection in Buddhism is that all things change. And Buddhism would say that it's because we're not really okay with the fact that things change that we cause ourselves a lot of unhappiness. So you reflect upon how all things change to become more okay with change. So that would be a topic, for example, that you could reflect upon. Week 4, we're going to look at reflective reading, which is because we do take in a lot of our information these days while reading. So we're going to look at reading and how to reflectively read a bit more. And particularly we'll be looking at Buddhist texts that are very useful. And then in week 5, we'll look at contemplating reality. And you might say imagining the Buddha. The Buddha as a representation of what reality is. So I won't say much about that here, but I just wanted to mention it now. Yep. So that's what we'll be doing over the next 5 weeks. You don't have to take notes, by the way. You can if you want. I'll send out the notes afterwards, the slideshow, if you want, and the video of this night will be available as well. Yeah. So so do try and make it each week. It can be nice if you can just email me to let me know if you're not going to make it. That has twofold things. So we know if people are going to miss things, but also it means that it encourages you more to come on the course then as well, rather than just missing it, because sometimes we need all the conditions we can get to help us stay on with these kinds of things. And each week as well, then there will be homework. So this week, for example, one of the things I'll be asking you to do is to try and do nothing for 10 minutes each day. Look out a window or something like that, because as I'll say later, one of the main conditions we need for reflection is space. And space is the condition that's most missing in most people's lives these days, not just in the pandemic times, but more generally. So we'll have homework each week. And at the start of the following week, we'll have small groups, breakout rooms, we call them on Zoom, to check in about how we got on with the homework. Yeah. You can call it home practice if the term homework is traumatic for you. And I have to say the course will go so much better if you can really engage with the home practice as best you can. You'll still have a very good course if you come each week, but if you can really engage with the home practice, it will be great to do so. We also have a way of keeping in touch during the week. So we have this a kind of a social media platform called Slack, which many of you will be aware of already from other contexts. And so maybe, Stephen, you could share that link for the Slack invite in the chat, but you can join Slack and join our Slack. It's basically a space where you can drop in during the week, leave messages. It's a message board, you could say. I hope I'm not horrifying anyone who's familiar with Slack by calling it a message board. Yep, just happy. Lots of people, we use it on the team here at work. So you can have a separate Slack, which is nothing to do at work, and it's just about reflecting and just about sharing nice images that you see during the day or whatever you want to do. There's lots of different ways to chat and engage on that. And I'll be putting up the home practice there and the videos there as well. I will email you as well, but do join the conversation on Slack, and I'll say more about that at the end as well. I might just, actually, you know what I might do? I might just show you Slack, just so you have a sense of what it's like. Just give me 1 second here. So share screen. So this is Slack, yeah. So what we have here is all the channels, and I'll just show you. We had a course, Sailing the Worldly Winds, and there was loads of people started chatting on it, sharing pictures, talking about their practice. I'm not going to slow down to show you the text because I don't really want to, but there's like all these kind of conversations. Kind of someone was sharing some nice bread that caused them to have some reflections and things like this, you know. So there's lots that can happen on there, and it's really interesting just to chat to people. So there's a whole channel here where you can share how you get on during the week, and I'll be popping in there and sending questions every now and again as well. So do join that if you can, and if you, I'll email you instructions on that as well later tonight or tomorrow morning. Just a little bit of Zoom housekeeping as well. If your broadband is low, you can turn off your video, and that will help you. It's nice to have your video on if your broadband's okay, because it's nice to see you all. And if you want to switch to gallery view and see everyone, you can do that. I think on a phone you have to swipe right, but on a computer it's usually near the top right corner. You can switch to gallery view if you don't want me taking up most of your screen, but it's up to you. And you can see each other. But if your broadband is low, you can, or it's stuttering, you can stop your video, your own video. The other thing I'd say about being online is that it's very easy to be fragmented online. It's very easy to be reading the newspaper in the background while the course is happening and someone else is talking, or to be answering emails as they come in, or even having notifications come in. So if you can, don't do that. And if you can, shut down anything that's going to pop up notifications. Like, don't have your WhatsApp web open in the background or something like that, if you know what that is, or even your web browser, which will show your emails, you know. So try and have all those shut down so they don't distract you. Yeah. And yeah, and you can put any questions or comments in the chat as well. And I will be making the video available, and none of your faces will be available on the video when we upload that to YouTube, so you don't have to worry about that. And we'll edit out the chat rooms, the breakout rooms that we do will be edited out as well, so don't worry about that. Yeah. Yeah. One other little bit of housekeeping. So it's not entirely vital that you do this, but I'd really recommend getting the book for the course. So this is the book. I have the older edition. There's a newer edition with a nicer, I think it's a nicer cover actually, called The Art of Reflection. And you can buy that from Windhorse Publications. That's our in-house publishing company. And I've sent you the details for that will be in your email, but I'll remind you again in the follow-up email from tonight. You can survive without it, but it is a really good book to read, and I'd really recommend you buying it if you can. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's all by way of introduction. Just to say one last little bit of introduction, just to say what we'll be doing tonight. So what we'll be doing tonight is we'll be having some, well, we're in halfway through the introductions, and I'll be getting you to introduce yourselves in a moment in the groups. Tonight we're going to talk about, well, what is reflection? Yeah, what is reflection? And we'll be looking at something, quite a core Buddhist teaching called the 3 levels of reflection. And maybe I should say now, in case I forget to say it later, that you don't have to be a Buddhist to do this course. Yeah. I mean, it is very explicitly a Buddhism course, but you don't have to be a fully signed up member of the Buddhist community to do the course. All these tools of Buddhism are ways that lead to freedom, and you don't have to be a Buddhist to experience that freedom. So the 3 levels of wisdom, for example, is a teaching to help us to become more free. And reflection to me is only interesting to the degree that it helps us become free, and free of any kind of psychological, any kind of spiritual, any kind of mental, any kind of emotional blockages or shortcomings or anything like that. So that's the mission of Buddhism, to help us to become more free. And that can work for anyone, regardless of how signed up you are. Yeah. So we'll be looking at the 3 levels of wisdom. We'll have a 10-minute break halfway through or so. And then we'll be getting started on reflection. A few tips. We'll be doing reflection as well, both before and after the break. And then a few final pointers about reflection. And then I'll talk about the home practice. And we'll have time for, what I'll probably do, what I found works in the other courses that I've done is, if you have any major burning questions, if we don't have time, you can always stay over a bit at the end if you want to ask me, and we'll just turn off the recording and we'll just have a chat then if anyone has any questions. Yeah. Okay, so that's the overview of the course. Before we go any further than that, I think what we could do is just do a very short meditation just to arrive, actually, because some of you will have come from a busy day, if not all of you. Some of you maybe were out on the beach all day. The meditation will still be good for that too. So why don't we just set ourselves up so we're reasonably comfortable. You don't have to go into full meditation position if you don't want to. Just make sure you're reasonably upright, or if you're lying on the floor, just do your best to remain awake. But most of you look like you're sitting up, so that's good. We'll just do this a very short one for 5 minutes or so. So when you're ready, if you want to, you can close your eyes. Maybe just taking a deeper breath or two. Breathe deeply down into the belly. With each exhalation, just really letting go. And with each inhalation, really feeling the chest cavity and the stomach fill. And then letting your breath return to normal. Just noticing what sounds we can hear. So there might be sounds, obviously the sounds of my voice, maybe the sounds of the fans in your computer, the sounds in your house, the street, whatever else you can hear. And just letting them be there, neither pulling them towards us, nor pushing them away from us. Letting them come to us as well. It's simply a sound arising and a sound passing away. And then tuning into the body a bit more. Maybe really grounding ourselves if we need to. Feeling our feet in contact with the floor, or the cushions of the chair. How much of our feet can we be aware of? You could also include your sitting bones or whatever part of you is in contact with the chair or the cushions. Particularly if you're a bit up in your head after your day, really bringing yourself down into your sitting bones, into your legs, into your feet, if you can. If you can't, then just being patient and doing it as best you can. Noticing your hands and fingers and thumbs. All the sensations in your hands and your palms. Becoming aware of your arms. Moving your awareness into your face. How does your face feel? Are we frowning? Or is our face at ease? Can we simply let our eyelids and our lips be gently closed, or for our lips maybe just gently open if we want to breathe through our mouth? Easing any pressure or holding as best we can. Moving down into the stomach and the abdomen and the chest then. For the last minute or so, just noticing the breath again. This time without controlling it or forcing it, just noticing how we're already breathing. In our chest, in our stomach, wherever's most vivid for you. And just letting the body sit. Just letting it sit without having to hold anything or having to do anything. And then starting to broaden out once more to take in the room. Actively listening to the sounds this time to broaden out our awareness. Starting to reintroduce movement and bring the practice to a close. Wiggling fingers and thumbs and toes and feet. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And bring the practice to a close. So Stephen, can I just check, are you nearly ready?
Yeah, we're good to go.
How many's in the groups each, roughly?
Roughly 6.
Okay, let's go with 10 minutes then, if that's okay.
Okay.
So guys, what we're going to do now is we're going to go into small breakout rooms, because otherwise it's just me talking at you for 2 hours, and that's no fun for anyone. I'm under no illusions about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a chance to chat to each other. So we'll go into small groups, and it'll just be a chance. So what I'd like you to do in the groups is just maybe say your name, where you're based. You can say a little bit about how you are if you want, and what brought you to the course, and what would you like to get from the course. And it can be very brief, or you don't, if you don't know, you can just say you don't know. I just like the image on the poster or something, you know. And it'll be and you'll be with this group over the next 6 weeks. Oh, you know, we'll be doing 5 courses over 6 weeks. So hopefully you will get to know each other a bit and get a feel for each other. And you have the same leader each week. So it's a really nice thing to do in these courses. So each room will have the name of the leader and either a flower or a precious gem. Yeah. And you'll need to remember your group name next week, because next week we'll be asking you to pick your own room again. You know, so if you're in my group's called Vajrashura Diamond. And next week you'll have to find Vajrashura Diamond and go back to that room again. So do remember, Stephen will help you anyway if there's any problems. Okay, so your name, where you're from, anything you want to say about how you are, what brought you to the course, and anything you want to get from the course, and remembering your group name as well then. And your course leader will tell you all this as well. So, and Stephen's just put those questions in the chat. So Stephen, when you're ready, you can stick us all into our group. So we'll go straight into our groups this time ourselves, I think, or you'll get an invitation to do so.
10 minutes, you said, Vajrashura, wasn't it?
10 minutes, please, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Great, so we're just going to wait for everyone to stream back in from the breakout rooms. So if you have any questions or comments while we're waiting another 25 seconds, if you can type that fast, but you can keep typing even after that, do put them in the chat. Hopefully you all found that group okay. You will be getting to know each other, which is lovely actually. And less so the case now, but I remember 6 months ago in these breakout rooms, it was the only real opportunity you had to meet people, you know. Anyways. Okay, I think we're all back now. Yeah, we are. Okay, great. So I wanted to talk for a little bit. We'll do a bit of reflection and then we'll have a break. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about now was introducing what is reflection. Yeah. So what is reflection? Okay, so what is reflection? So the word to reflect, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, and it comes from to reflectere, which is the Latin, and means back, and flectere, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, means, oh, that's a misprint, that should be to bend, not to bed. To bend, curve, or bow. Yeah, to bend, curve, or bow. So you know what, I might just change that right now. Okay, so to bend, curve, or bow. So really, you could say to reflect means to turn back on itself, yeah, or to turn over, or to turn about something in our minds. So we take something like a topic or an event or an experience, and we turn it over, you could say. We turn it over, we look at it from different angles, we chew over it, you could say. And we do all this in our minds, but also in our hearts, yeah. So Buddhism talks a lot about the mind, as you'll discover on this course if you haven't discovered that already. And when Buddhism uses the word mind, it really means heart mind. It doesn't really distinguish between the two, which is an interesting reflection in itself if you want to take that away to reflect upon. What's the difference between the heart and the mind? So anyway, so it's a way of turning it over and not just thinking about, but also feeling our response to this, noticing our attachments to things, noticing our responses to things, and so on. That's all there in this turning over, this turning about. So it is an art. It is an art, a training. It's very much not a engineering or a science, you could say. It's a way of seeing the truth, and it's something that we get better at in the same way that we would become better at painting if we were to keep painting or learning how to paint, or get better at playing a musical instrument. So it is an art rather than a science, you could say. So we're turning this about in our minds, yeah? And that's why the book obviously is called The Art of Reflection, just to emphasize that it is an art. And it is a discipline as well. You know, art, all great artists are disciplined. If you read about some of the great painters, they might be painting for 14 hours a day, you know, for many, many years before they can become good enough to produce a masterpiece. So an art doesn't necessarily mean that it's not disciplined as well. So, you know, it will take it is something that you do as a long-term project reflection. And I hope you're already reflecting, I'm sure. And I hope that we continue to reflect for the rest of our lives, actually. So it's not going to be completely new to us. But I think I mentioned this earlier, reflection is a bit of a neglected art form in Western Buddhism. I think we tend to be quite down on thinking in the West. And it's a bit of a shame that, because I think thinking is very important, actually. Thinking well is very important. Dismissing all thinking would be like saying that, well, there's McDonald's and there's Supermax and there's loads of different types of junk food, so therefore we should never eat again, you know? And I think the image is also got another layer, which is that, you know, if you did that, you would starve. If you didn't eat just because there is junk food, you would starve. And I think in the same kind of way, morally, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, you would also starve if you didn't think, yeah? If you never allowed yourself to think. So it is quite a good image, that. So we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater if we find that thinking is problematic, but rather we should learn about new ways of thinking that are more productive. And if we really want to see the true nature of things, if we really want to become free, which is the purpose of Buddhism, the purpose of Buddhism is to see things as they really are, to see reality so deeply that we are no longer hindered by anything. We're completely free internally. If we want to see this, we need to reflect, and we need to reflect intensely and vividly. And if we do that, we'll become free, we'll experience great bliss, great joy. And what's more, and even more important, is we'll be able to help other people experience greater freedom and joy as well. So that's why I reflect. I also reflect just because I really enjoy it as well. But that's what the ultimate goal of reflection is, to become free, to experience the joy of freedom, and so that we can help others be free as well. So it might be another interesting reflection that you might like to think about is, how do you relate, or is there good thinking as well? So if that grabs you, you might like to write it down and reflect on it during the week. I'd love to do a reflection now, but we're going to do a different reflection instead in a few moments. So the Buddha was a great thinker, and he valued reason very highly. And a lot of his interactions that you read in the early Buddhist texts, they're called the Pali Canon. It's a body of texts. He's just arguing with people, arguing in the very positive sense of the word, like debating basically, and showing up usually how their position is inconsistent. A bit like maybe, you know, many of the great philosophers have done as well, like Socratic questioning and things like that. And he helped most of them, not all of them, but most of them, see the truth at least a bit more deeply. So thinking is really important. Now, it's important also to say that reality, you know, I talked about this term seeing reality in Buddhism. You can't ever really fully encapsulate reality, or you can never really fully encapsulate life in words. Yeah. Far better poets than me. I'm not even a poet at all, but far better people than me have tried to encapsulate and evoke life in words. So we can never fully capture words, but we do need words. Yeah. And another Buddhist poet, philosopher once said, we use words to go beyond words into the wordless. We use words to go beyond words into the wordless. So that was Ashvaghosha. And so we do need to reflect, and true reflection, often using words, although we'll see on this course that not all reflection involves words. We can have an experience of the wordless as well, that can never be put into words. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say is about the 3 levels of wisdom. Yeah, so let me share my screen because it's easier if you see this, I think. So this is a teaching that goes, as far as I know, right back to the Buddha. And it describes how we move from hearing something for the first time, like a Buddhist teaching, right through to realizing it deeply and fully for ourselves. Yeah. So there's these 3 levels that are progressive, that are deepening. So the first level is the wisdom that we hear, or indeed read. So traditionally it's what we hear, because Buddhism was for centuries an oral tradition where people would have recited it verbally or orally. And interestingly, actually, oral traditions are much more accurate, it's said, scientifically shown that they're much more accurate than written traditions. Yeah. So don't look down on oral traditions just because, you know, it seems primitive. Yeah. When you're reciting oral teachings, you can't change them as much, basically, but you can do that when you're writing them, so they get changed. So anyways, that's beside the point. So firstly, there's the wisdom that we hear. So we hear a teaching, or indeed these days more and more we read a teaching. Yeah. So the teaching, for example, that all things change that I mentioned earlier. So we hear that, and we might have heard it before, but maybe we hear it for the first time and it goes in. And part of this level as well is just checking that we've heard what the person's actually saying, not what we want them to say, you know? So we want to hear that all things don't change, or things change, but we don't really change. You know, we were never going to get old and die, you know, that kind of thing. So we have to be clear, even if we don't agree with it, what's been actually said. So that's the first level of wisdom. So it involves a clarification, yeah? And it's not that you have to blindly believe it, but you just have to be clear what the person's saying, yeah? Or what you're reading. So when you're reading the book this week, if you don't understand the paragraph, well, you might want to really just read it again and again until you get it, yeah? Or ask someone a question about it. So then, having been really clear, made really clear about what you've read or heard, you proceed to the second level of wisdom, which is where you reflect upon it. You do this turning over that I mentioned in your mind. And maybe you memorize it. Maybe at this stage you put it into your own words. Maybe you see how it might apply to the circumstances of your life. You test it out for yourself. Do you really think that's true? Is it really true? Is it really clear what's been said? Even if you agree with it intellectually, do you act upon it? You know, so we might agree that all things change, but then we get really upset when our favorite mug breaks. So obviously we're not okay with things changing, you know, or we get really afraid of death, for example. Or we don't like new beginnings. Sometimes we just want things to stay the same. We want to stay in lockdown because we've kind of gotten used to it and we don't want to go back to the crowds of people again. You know, so we might think we're okay with change, but maybe we're not really at an emotional level. So all of that enters into the, all of that enters into the reflection that we do here at the second level, yeah? And really the course is about this second level. This course is about the second level, how we turn basic teachings of Buddhism into something that's, you know, we can chew on, that we can put into our own words and that we can turn over, yeah? And then when we do all this for long enough, really the third level of wisdom then is wisdom in its fullness. We contemplate it. And what I mean here by the word contemplation is we sit with the truth directly, yeah? It becomes part of who we are, yeah? So we reflect, for example, as much as we need to on change, so that it just becomes part of who you are. You are just with change and it's completely fine, yeah? Your favorite mug breaks, that's fine. Lockdown is starting to open up, that's fine. And then you hear that actually it gets delayed and that's fine. You know what I mean? You're really, really deeply okay with that. You're so okay with things changing that it doesn't bother you anymore. And even ultimately, you're okay with death, yeah? You know, that's a long way down the line, I think. So this is where you embody it for yourself, yeah? So there are the three levels of wisdom. You hear it, you clarify what it is, you turn it over for yourself, and then you, by reflecting upon it enough, you see it directly, and it's in your bones, you could say. That's the third level. So let's just look at this with another Buddhist teaching, and we'll just do this up to the break, yeah? So this is a Buddhist teaching that's very famous, and it goes right back to the very early texts again of the Buddha. So he says, not by hatred are hatreds ever ceased in the world. They are pacified only by love. This is the eternal law. So sometimes it's but not by hatred are hatreds ever pacified in the world or ceased or stopped in the world. They are pacified only by love. This is the eternal law. Yeah. So if you want to look at the first level of wisdom, let's just be really clear then what's been said here and who's saying it. So the Buddha is saying it to us. And what he's saying is that hatred never solves hatred. It never stops hatred. Yeah. That's what the first line, in this world, in the world, you know, it's never productive that to respond to hatred with hatred. And hatred in Buddhism, this is another thing to be clear what's been meant by hatred. Hatred it's a very strong word in English. And but in a way, it could mean anything from mild irritability here up to murderous rage. Yeah, that's the kind of what we mean generally when we speak of hatred in Buddhism. So irritability never solves irritability, for example, you know, or murderous rage never solves murderous rage, or anything in between. Pacified here doesn't mean that you're completely neutralized. It means more that the turmoil and the ill will that's there in hatred is converted, is pacified. It's not that it's wiped out, but it's converted into love, basically. That's what pacified tends to mean. And it's only by love, it's only by responding to hatred with love that hatred can ever really be stopped or pacified, yeah? And then the last line is that this is the eternal law. So the word law here, it's not like a commandment from God or anything, or it's not that this is saying that this is a law you have to obey. It's more that the word law here is actually dharma, which we'll come across again. And it kind of means like fundamental structure of the universe in this sense. You know, it's something fundamental to the universe for all time that this is the case. That's what the last line is saying. It's just inherent in the structure of the universe that hatred doesn't stop hatred. Only love stops hatred, yeah? And that's an impersonal law. It's nothing to do with me or you or God or anything like that. That's just how the universe is, yeah? So that's what the Buddha is saying. And you might disagree or you might agree with that, but that's for the second level of wisdom. So the first level of wisdom, we're just clarifying it, yeah? And now for the second level of wisdom, what we're going to do is we're just going to stop for 5 minutes. And I'm going to leave it up on the screen. I'm going to turn off my camera so you don't have to look at me. And what we're going to do is we're just going to turn it over in our experience. You can read it over and over again if you want. You could close your eyes and just turn it over in your mind. And just keep it personal. Reflection's always personal. Don't get into like Donald Trump level politics, you know? Ask yourself, a way you might reflect on this, for example, it's not the only way, there's millions of ways of reflecting on this. You might ask yourself, when has there been hatred in my life and what diffused it? Yeah. Was it love or was it hatred? And did hatred help and did love help? That might be one way of reflecting upon it. Or you might ask yourself, you might reflect upon this phrase, cosmic law or eternal law, if that really grabs you. And what does it mean that it's woven into the fabric of the universe, that it's like this? You know, there's just so many different ways you could reflect. So go with whatever interests you. Yeah. If that's not clear, maybe you just put a message in the chat and I'll just try and answer. But hopefully reflection is actually really, really simple. So I'll stop talking now and I'll turn off my camera for 5 minutes. And let's just reflect, and I'll mute myself. So let's just reflect on that. And in 5 minutes, I'll start talking again, okay? So 5 minutes reflection. I'm sorry, one more thing I'll say is just to be really in your body. You could put your hand on your belly and or on your heart. Don't reflect with your head, reflect with your guts and your heart in a way, and feel your responses in your body. So then starting to bring that to a close. Okay. And maybe if there was anything particular that really struck you there you want to remember, it's no harm to write it down as well, or just to make a note for yourself. Next time you get really irritable, you can remember that it's never good to meet irritability with irritability and so on. Okay, so I threw you in at the deep end there a bit with the reflection, but that was just to highlight the 3 levels of wisdom, that we hear something, we turn it over in our minds, and then it becomes part of who we are. And in a way, it's really obvious, but it's just really good to highlight that, you know, the 3 levels. I keep coming back to that teaching when it comes to reflection, yeah. Okay, so what we'll do now is in a moment, we'll take a break. What we'll do is we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll come back at 8:15. So let's be ready to kick off at 8:15. I'll be starting 8:15 sharp, so I'll be back a little before 8:15. Okay. So if anyone has any comments or questions about the reflection you did, feel free to write in the chat if you want. Be interested to hear how you get on while we're waiting for people. Oh, thanks, Liz. Okay, so we'll kick off again. So just before we get back into the material, just to say that a couple of things, that firstly, you've already probably seen this on the website, but there's no charge for this course. So the course is completely free to do, and one of the things we've been really happy in the pandemic is just to offer all of our courses for free from the Buddhist Centre. We don't want to, that way we want to reach as many people as possible with these, with the Dharma, basically, with the Buddhist teachings. But, it does cost money to run a Buddhist Centre, even when the Buddhist Centre is closed, I'm afraid. And it even costs money to put on these courses and advertise them and all that. So if you're in a position where you can give a donation to support the Buddhist Centre, it would be really great if you could do so. Stephen, will you share that link now if you've not done it already? So on that page, I'll share this in the email as well. So if you're in a position to give a donation, you can give as much or as little as you want. If you don't have any money at all, that's fine. You don't have to donate. If you can give £1 million, that's great as well. We'll buy a new retreat centre. And if you want to give something in between those two, that's fine too, I'm going to make a light suggestion of €100 if you want for the course, so a 5-week course, €100 feels reasonable. If you want a guide, sometimes people appreciate a suggestion for what to give. But again, it's entirely up to you. You can give as much or as little as you want. And I'll include a little reminder every week as well. Is there anything else then to remind you? Yeah, and just to remind you again about Slack, do join us on Slack. The more people join and engage with Slack, the better Slack becomes. And hopefully you're not on Slack all day anyway, in which case it might be a bit traumatic, but it is a nicer way to use Slack than worrying about your work and stuff. So I'll send you instructions in the email tonight or tomorrow morning when I get that out to you. And if you have any questions, do send them into the chat. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is doing nothing. Yeah, doing nothing. Okay, so I want to read a quote from Sangharakshita, who's the founder of our Buddhist community. He says in one of his books, or one of his lectures rather, "We don't really have to do anything, do we? Most of the time, we could just be sitting back, as it were, and enjoying the universe. That's our major occupation. That's our real work, not to work. We need to get food to eat, clothing, a roof over our head, healthcare, a few books, transport of some kind. But the rest of our time and energy, we can just devote to the contemplation of the universe, simply enjoying it all. That is how a bodhisattva lives anyway. A bodhisattva is someone who is greatly advanced in the spiritual life. So that's our work, not to work. The rest of our time and energy we can just devote to contemplation of the universe, simply enjoying it all. Yeah. So it might be worth thinking, do you ever just sit back and contemplate the universe? Yeah. Or are you moving from job to getting your dinner, to Facebook, to Twitter, to the Irish Times, to an evening course, to reading your book, to watching some Netflix, to passing out, to getting up in the morning with the alarm, to reaching for your phone, to take in more information, to rush to breakfast, to rush to work, and so on, ad infinitum. So do we ever give ourselves time and space in our lives just to be, just to sit, just to be open to the world? Yeah. And the main thing I want you to do this week in your homework is to get into the habit of doing nothing. Yeah. This freaks people out, the idea of having to do nothing for 10 minutes each day. Yeah, freaks people out goodo, more than if I asked them to run a 10-kilometer run every day or anything like that, you know. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and do nothing. Yeah, because if you're going to reflect upon the nature of the universe, if you're going to be open to the nature of the universe, you're not going to do it if you're just coming from an hour on Instagram, you know what I mean, and about to move into an hour on Twitter or Netflix. Yeah. The prime prerequisite for reflection is space. Yeah, the prime prerequisite for reflection is space. And most of us, unbelievably, we kind of think we have more space than we ever had. I think we have the potential for more space than we ever had in human history, perhaps, but we have more distractions to fill that space than we've ever had as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do nothing for 10 minutes. Yeah, we're going to do nothing for 10 minutes. We'll see how much the numbers go down now in doing this. Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest is, and we're going to do this every day as home practice, and this is going to be one of the most difficult things you'll ever do. Yeah. I say that so that you'll find it easier than I'm making it out to be, hopefully. So what I suggest you do is you make yourself comfortable. Don't doze off. Don't reach for your phone. Don't read anything. You can turn off your camera or leave it on. I am literally going to turn my chair. I'm just going to look out the window for 10 minutes here like this. Okay. And so you don't have to even look at your screen if that's distracting. And in 10 minutes, I'll ring a bell. And all you have to do is just sit there. Yeah. You can think about whatever you want. Don't get furiously into planning. Don't do anything of utility. Like, don't start planning how you're going to organize your day tomorrow. So that's the main rule. Don't get up and don't do anything of utility, if you see what I mean. And if you find yourself getting into negative thoughts, just try and let them go as well. And don't even meditate, because you can do something if you know how to meditate. If you start really following the breath really strictly, you're not really doing nothing there either. Yeah. You can drink tea. I think having a nice cup of tea is a really good thing to do for your 10 minutes. Thanks, Maggie. That's a really good point. Not coffee, because you'll just overstimulate yourself, but tea is good. Yeah. Okay, so 10 minutes and counting. I'm going to turn off my spotlight as well. Okay, and then bringing that to a close. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too traumatic. It'd be great to hear a few responses if you wanted to write some in the chat. Kelly, I'll get back to your question in a moment. But if people wanted to write something in the chat, that would be great. I have to say I really enjoyed that. I was just looking out at the street and it's a lovely evening here in Dublin, and just very, very enjoyable, I have to say. I do find that often when doing this, particularly when you first start doing this, the first few minutes can be a bit uncomfortable. And then it's like you kind of push through into something a little bit more deep. It becomes much more enjoyable. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Valerie. Valerie found it very relaxing. Maggie's looking at the clouds moving and the birds. Great. Dan remembered a lot of things he has to do. Hope you're able to unforget them then. Or forget them, sorry. Declan's asking, is doing nothing a bit just like the just sitting practice? But yeah, in a way, what I'd like you to think about doing nothing is that it has no purpose whatsoever. Yeah. Sometimes we call it the mandala of uselessness, you know, where everything is so use orientated that I think we should try and enter into a space which is utterly useless. Yeah. So just think of it as utterly useless for the next week. That's all you're doing. You're just sitting with no use in mind. And I think it's almost like blaspheming against everything having to be useful and having to have a purpose. Yeah. Does that make sense? You're kind of giving two fingers to the world in some ways by doing nothing. Yeah. In the nicest possible way, obviously. I enjoyed it more than I thought it would. That's great. I found it relaxing and observing my thoughts. I found it hard not to focus on anything, so I directed my thoughts to my breathing. Giuseppe says, yeah, it's fine to have a light awareness of your breath, as long as you're not trying to do anything. You know what I mean? Caroline really enjoyed it. That's great. Never noticed how beautiful the trees outside your window were. That's great. Siobhan didn't want to stop. That's great. I found it beautiful, Sam said. Yeah, and Sam realized just how much he doesn't do that, I guess, to paraphrase him a bit, and how much society doesn't allow us to do that. So you can read Sam's rant there in the chat. Steph was listening to the sounds outside and smelling the neighbors cooking. Yeah. Relaxing. Kiva nearly fell asleep. Lindsay was getting good at watching plants grow. Dag has opened up messages from the universe, and Catherine really enjoyed it. That's great. Wow, I wasn't expecting so many good comments. Okay, so you're all really well placed now. Yeah, that's a really good point, Sam. Sam felt like he was picking up where he left off in childhood, you know, and that is something that I got very strongly when I started meditating as well. You just feel like you're connecting into that space. Maybe that kind of boredom you had when you were a kid, really. You know what I mean? We're terrified of allowing ourselves to be bored. I think boredom is the modern sin, really, in some ways. You know, you can never, ever be bored or unproductive. So I think it'd be really good if we were bored more, actually, because it's out of boredom that we become creative. Yeah. So try and be bored this week if you can, and do nothing. Okay, great. If you have any questions about that, do ask. So like I said, space is the prerequisite for reflection. Yeah. So we're really starting with the basics this week. And if we don't create space, there's no point in trying to reflect, I think. Yeah. And actually, if you're a meditator, what you'll probably find is that if you give yourself this 10 minutes of space, your meditation will go a lot better, because you need to think, you need to digest, you need to kind of let your thoughts reorder themselves and settle. And because we don't give ourselves any time in our day to do that, well, you end up doing that in your meditation practice. So you can do it here instead. And this will actually, if you did this before your meditation practice, your meditation will go a lot better as well. Yeah. Okay. So Kelly asked the question earlier on about the 3 levels of reflection. So I might just deal with that now. So she says, on the 3 stages of reflection, where would you say that we find the emotional equivalence? I find it hard to find an emotional connection with intellectual understandings. So I think the first level is where we clarify things. You know, they've got 3 levels of wisdom. The first level is where you're clarifying it intellectually. Yeah. And the second level is where you're trying to bring that a bit more into your heart, trying to reflect upon it, turn it over, both intellectually and emotionally, until it starts to merge. So it's not so much that you just bring it from your head to your heart. It's more that your head and your heart unify around it. And then the third level is where it's just part of who you are at every level. Does that answer your question, Kelly? Okay, I think I saw you nod. Okay, great. So yeah, the second level really is where you start bringing it down into your heart. Yeah. Let's see. Sumeda asks, will you give me a note for work so I can do nothing? I'll be happy to give that. I'm not sure how useful or how much they'd pay attention to it. Flame Master asks, what happens if you don't think I'm meditation? What happens if you don't do meditation? Is that what you mean? I'm not quite sure what the question is, or maybe you could type it in again. You can do nothing no matter if you reflect or if you meditate or not, if that's the question. Yeah. Okay, so let's just look at some points about this doing nothing then. So let's just go back to the getting started like this. Yeah. So a couple of points to make is learn to do nothing. We really need to be free to do nothing. So I've talked about that already. Yeah. But you do need to schedule it in. So you need to schedule in time where you do nothing this week. So Ratnaguna in his book tells a story about how a friend is talking to him on the phone. He says, hey, can we meet Tuesday at 3 o'clock for a chat? And Ratnaguna goes, oh, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Oh, I'm doing nothing then. And he goes, and the friend goes, great, I'll meet you then. And he goes, no, you can't meet me then. I'm doing nothing then. So he's scheduled in to do nothing at that time on Tuesday at 3 o'clock. So you might want to schedule in, and maybe in the groups later on where we're setting our intentions, you can say to people in the group, when are you going to do your nothing tomorrow for 10 minutes? Yeah. And I'd really recommend just doing it somewhere beautiful. You can look out a window or in your garden, have a nice cup of tea. I've been getting really into fine teas, like really nice teas from the Orient. So you could have a really nice cup of tea there, and so on. And don't apologize for doing nothing to people. You really need to not let it be squeezed out. Doing nothing is often the best thing to do, yeah? And no mobile phone, and spend 10 minutes each day doing nothing, yeah? So the next one then is just allow an awareness, an inner spaciousness to emerge, an inner timelessness to emerge, which it sounds like many of you did there. So just allowing that to emerge over time. It might not happen straight away, yeah? And doing it on your own might not be as powerful as doing it there, because doing it together does add to it as well, you know? And then notice what emerges in a disinterested way. So you find, oh, look, there's thoughts about work. Okay, look, that's interesting. And just let them arise and let them pass away again. You don't have to be invested in thoughts. You are not your thoughts. Yeah, thoughts are part of you, but you are not your thoughts. Yeah, you don't have to think. You won't disappear off into a puff of smoke and never come back if you don't throw yourself into your thoughts every time they arise. Yeah. And then give time to thinking and give time to not thinking. So you don't have to, you could think about things if you want, but don't feel like you always have to think. You have to give yourself a break from thinking as well from time to time. Yeah, so just notice what emerges, and you know, don't feel like you have to think all the time. In fact, you know, with doing nothing, later, like in subsequent weeks, we'll do more directed reflection. But for now, it's best just to do nothing, really. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So there are a few points. Learn to do nothing. Really, that's about scheduling it and schedule it in. Allow inner spaciousness to emerge. Notice what emerges. And the last point's not as important right now, but you know, there's time for thinking and there's time for not thinking. Yeah, you can't think all the time. And then the last question was just a bit of a clarification. There's been a clarification. When I meditate, I don't think my mind just goes quite. Is this good? Okay. Okay. So just a couple more things to mention then, and then we'll see if we have time for another little reflection. But let's see, how much of this do we need to say right now? A lot of this, I should have said this earlier, but the book will cover everything that we do on the course in much more detail. So If you're not sure about anything, you can go and read the book, and the book goes into it in much more detail. Yeah. Okay, so you might like to reflect on things then as well. You know, you might want to spend a bit of time at the end of your 10 minutes reflecting. So remember, I suggested the reflection earlier on about, you know, hatred never ceases by hatred. It only is pacified by love. So you could reflect upon that. I also suggested the one earlier about how do you relate to thinking? That could be an interesting reflection. Yeah. You could also do another one, which is, I think is really interesting, which is, what's the most urgent thing in your life right now to get done? Yeah, that's it. So you can reflect upon that. And then you could, I'll include these suggested reflections in the notes. But then you could also reflect on what's the most important thing in my life to get done? And then reflect on, are the urgent things the same things as the important things? So that's an interesting reflection to do. So you might want to do that. I don't think we'll have time to do that right now, unfortunately. I was hoping to, but it's more important that we did nothing there. Yeah. So what's urgent and what's important, and are those the same? And shock horror, people often find that they're not. Yeah, they're not. Okay. A few little things to say then as well. Let's see. There's also this idea of prapancha in Buddhism. So prapancha is a Buddhist word, and it's from Sanskrit, I think, and it means mental proliferation. Mental proliferation. And it means where you just get lost in thought after thought after thought after thought after thought. So just to remind you that prapancha is not reflection. Yeah. Prapancha, mental proliferation, is where you get caught up in ideas about things, but not really the things themselves. You get caught up in labels. You get caught up in ideas about life, but not really life itself. So watch out for that. This is what I mean, and maybe this goes back to Kelly's question as well, that I think reflection is very embodied. You know, it should be in your body. You should feel your body, like you should be in your body if you can be when you're reflecting, or even doing nothing. Yeah. And then the last thing I want to say before talking about, well, the second last thing I want to say is the Buddha talked about skillful thoughts, helpful thoughts, and unhelpful thoughts. Yeah. So helpful thoughts or skillful thoughts are thoughts based upon awareness, love, kindness, empathy, energy, wisdom, expansiveness, and so on. And unhelpful thoughts are thoughts based upon greed, hatred, envy, ignorance, ill will, jealousy, craving, all those kinds of things. So reflection isn't doing unskillful or unhelpful thoughts. Yeah, we should, if we find that we're getting into ruminating about how an awful person we are, for example, that isn't reflection. Yeah. Or if we get into reflecting upon how much everyone hates us, or how much we irritate people, or how much that person is out to ruin me, that isn't reflection. Yeah. So just to say that as well. So be careful, just a few little things to watch out for as we reflect. So keep it real and keep it helpful. Yeah. And then a few last things. So let me do one last one screen share, and then we'll do the home practice. So a couple of last things to remember. Firstly, when you start to reflect, or indeed this week when you start to do nothing, you might not feel much, and that's normal, and that'll pass. Yeah. And it sounds like that wasn't the case there, because it sounds like quite a few of you had a really positive experience. But if you don't feel much, don't worry about it. Yeah. You might even feel resistance at the start, and that will pass too. Yeah. The second thing, and I've kind of already touched on this, reflection is not worrying. If you're just worrying about something, if you're going round and round, like Dan said there, he was thinking about all the things he has to do. I don't know if he meant that in a worrying kind of way, Dan, but you're not worrying about things. That's not reflection. That's not useful. And it's going to leave you in a worse state of mind than when you started. So maybe you need to get up and walk around a little bit just to break that cycle, and then sit down again and reflect. You can actually reflect walking up and down the garden as well, by the way. That can be quite a nice way of doing it. Whatever way works best for you. Yeah. Yeah, breaking the pattern if necessary. Then the third one is that even if you don't feel much, time spent reflecting is never wasted. So reflection is very subtle and it can have all kinds of effects on you, be it doing nothing or be it more like, thinking about something like we did earlier. You might not be sure what effect it's had, but it's never wasted. And there is this metaphor, this image of the stone being hit 20 times before it cracks, and it might feel like 19 times in a row, nothing has happened. But then with the 20th strike of the stone cracks in half, and it needed those previous 19 strikes. So you never know, and one day you might become a Buddha through reflection. You might become enlightened. You never know. And then on that note, reflection will make you wiser. So it's very hard to measure wisdom. Yeah, it's very hard to measure wisdom, but reflection will make you wiser. Yeah, so keep doing it. So then the home practice this week, and then we'll go into group, Stephen, in a couple of minutes for 10 minutes. So the home practice this week is read the introductory chapter of the book. Yeah, if you have the book, this book, The Art of Reflection. If you don't have it, do get it. I mean, you'll survive without it, but it's a really good companion for the course. Read the introductory book. If you can get time, read chapter 1, because we've kind of drawn on material from both those chapters. There's one bit where it gets a little bit technical, but don't worry about it if it's not going in. But it's a really nice read, and there's lots of poetry and everything in it. Yeah. Whoops, this is out of order, sorry. Spend 10 minutes a day doing nothing. That's really important. That's your main home practice this week. Even if you don't get to read the book at all, really important to spend 10 minutes a day doing nothing. And I want you to decide I want you to tell your groups in a moment how you're going to planning to do that. Yeah, when you're going to do it. And be really realistic and be really brutal about getting your nothing in. Yeah, be really brutal, making sure, let nothing get in the way of you doing nothing. Yeah. Be aware of your thoughts, notice if they're skillful or if they're unskillful. Be aware of your thoughts as they happen as well. A large part of reflection is being aware of what you're thinking about. And I just said this a couple of minutes ago, but if it's a choice between reading the book and reflecting, that's you're tight on time, then reflection is more important. And then lastly, join Slack and let us know how you're getting on. Yeah, and I'll include more instructions again in the email on how to do that. Okay, and if you can make a donation, that would be great too. So that's your home practice. If you have any questions about that, you can ask the leader in the group. Let me just share those in the chat so you have them. Sorry, my keyboard's very loud, I know. Okay, so there's the home practice in the chat. So Stephen, if you want to send us into groups for 10 minutes to set our intentions, and then we'll come back to close the course. Close the evening, rather. Okay, we're just going to wait for everyone to come back in. So if you have any questions or anything, feel free to stick them in the chat if you want, or you can stay on and unmute yourself in a few minutes. A whole 12 seconds left for everyone else to come in. Okay. So Dara makes the point that it's easier to do nothing when you've done something meaningful during your day or satisfying. Yeah, great. Thanks, Dara, that's good. Okay, guys, so that's it. We'll finish up there. So we'll see you next week. You're all primed now. You're all ready to blaspheme against the universe by doing nothing. Get the book if you can. Do join Slack, and we'll see you on Slack during the week. I'll be posting reminders there. And we'll see you back here a little before 7 next week again, or at 7 o'clock next week. And best of luck. And if you have any questions, if you want to ask anything else, just stay on for a few minutes and we can answer your questions. So Stephen, maybe you can knock off the recording now.